Welcome back to the Observable Unknown. Human beings inherit far more than their eye color. They inherit habits, expectations, silences, ways of arguing and apologizing, ways of loving and ways of fearing. Sometimes they even inherit questions no one remembers asking. Families often believe they're transmitting values, but very often they're transmitting adaptations. A child learns what the family repeatedly demonstrates, not merely what the family repeatedly says. Every household possesses a grammar. Some families speak openly, others avoid conflict. Some solve problems together, while others pretend problems don't even exist. Some will teach curiosity, while others prefer to teach caution. Children become fluent long before they recognize that they've learned a language unique to their family. And because the patterns feel ordinary, they frequently become completely invisible. This is one reason Lineage possesses such extraordinary power. At Georgetown University, psychiatrist Murray Bowen transformed the study of families by proposing that the individual cannot be fully understood in isolation. Of course, this is very different than the format that was presented to us by Dr. Alfred Adler. Murray Bowen proposed that every person exists within an emotional system extending across generations. Patterns repeat, roles repeat, conflicts repeat, and anxieties repeat. Not because destiny requires them to repeat, but because systems tend toward familiarity. Bowen observed that unresolved emotional processes often travel quietly from one generation into the next. A parent's unresolved fear becomes their child's vigilance. A grandparent's silence becomes a family's inability to speak honestly. A single unresolved fracture may continue shaping relationships long after the original event has been entirely forgotten. The inheritance survives because the explanation disappears. Family therapist Monica McGoldrick expanded this work by encouraging clinicians to look beyond individuals and examine entire family histories. Patterns emerge that are almost impossible to see from a single lifetime. Migration, addiction, estrangement, loss, caregiving, violence, achievement, sacrifice. The family tree begins resembling less a collection of people than a living system remembering itself. The most remarkable insight is this: families often repeat what they have never consciously chosen, not because people lack intellect, but instead because inherited patterns rarely announce themselves as inheritance. They arrive disguised as personality. Modern biology has begun revealing another layer of the story. For generations, inheritance was understood primarily through genes. Today, fields such as epigenetics suggest a more complicated picture. Experiences may influence how certain genes are expressed across generations. Stress, nutrition, trauma, environmental conditions. These don't rewrite DNA itself, yet they may alter the biological conditions under which descendants begin life. The organism remembers more than we once imagined. This doesn't mean every hardship becomes biologically inherited, nor does it mean our futures are genetically predetermined. It means the relationship between experience and inheritance is much, much richer than earlier models allowed. Evolution tells a similar story. Biologists frequently speak of phylogenetic inertia, traits that once increased survival continue long after the original environment has changed. The organism carries yesterday's solutions into today's world. Sometimes they remain adaptive, sometimes they become obstacles. Human beings often do something remarkably similar. They carry emotional strategies developed under conditions that no longer exist. The danger passed, the strategy remained. This observation lies very near the center of my own work on temporal architecture, the 12 decision bodies, and more recently, the relational topology of consciousness. What we inherit isn't merely biology. It isn't merely psychology, and it's not merely culture. We inherit relational architectures, ways of interpreting authority, methods of approaching intimacy, manners of responding to uncertainty, and ways of organizing meaning itself. Long before we make conscious decisions, inherited relationships have already begun teaching us what reality feels like. This is why genuine transformation requires more than changing behavior. Behavior grows from interpretation. Interpretation grows from relationship. Relationship grows from inheritance. If we never examine what shaped those inherited structures, we often find ourselves solving today's problems with yesterday's maps. There's hopeful news hidden inside all of this. Inheritance is powerful, but it's not absolute. A pattern can be recognized, a conversation can begin, a silence can end. A child can experience something no previous generation received. Healing may not erase history. It can alter what history hands forward. Perhaps this is the deepest responsibility any generation carries. Not becoming perfect, but interrupting what shouldn't continue, strengthening what deserves to endure, and adding wisdom where suffering once stood alone. Lineage isn't merely the story of what our ancestors gave us. It's also the story of what we decide our descendants will receive. What remains unresolved is often inherited. What becomes understood can become a different inheritance entirely. If this interlude encouraged you to look at your family with greater clarity, compassion, or courage, make that known. Leave a rating or a review. Not for recognition, for signal. So understanding reaches places where inherited patterns have mistaken themselves for fate. Until next time, remember, you don't become what you feel. You become what you return to. And what you return to returns as you.